Okay, so in this video, I'm going to be going through some of the basics of formulas in Excel. And where we had left off before, we had gone through some of the basic navigation related shortcuts, and then some of the basic data manipulation and formatting shortcuts that you need to know in Excel. Now we're going to move to the next topic, which is giving you an overview of the different formulas and formula related functionalities and shortcuts that are available to you in Excel. Now, the reason why this is so important should be pretty obvious to you, which is that as an investment banker or as a private equity associate or analyst, you're going to be using formulas all the time in Excel. And even in data like we have right in front of us right now, like this customer data over here, right now we're not really using too much in the way of formulas here because it's all data. But typically when we go through and analyze this, we'll look at all sorts of different cuts of the data. We'll do some calculations of our own to look at the data in different ways. We can look at product prices, product quantities, and use those to come up with different formulas within this spreadsheet. So even when you're not actually building a financial model, formulas are extremely useful and basically essential in Excel if you're in investment banking or private equity. And the basic way I'm going to teach this is a lot of these formulas will be fairly common sense to you. For example, you might expect that you can multiply numbers, add numbers, subtract numbers, and such. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I'm going to spend time on the shortcuts that you need to know that are most critical, and then go into some of the built-in functions in Excel that will save you a lot of time when playing around with formulas, when editing and analyzing data, and when creating financial models as well. So the first thing I want to do here, just to give you an example of how to actually use formulas and use some of these shortcuts in Excel, is I'm going to enter a new column right here. So Control Spacebar, Alt IC for new column. And we're going to make this very simple. So we see that we have this product price and product quantity over here. And all we're going to do for this formula is multiply these two. So basically it's going to be giving us the revenue per order. And remember, each of these different lines represents an order from one particular customer. So it's not revenue per customer, it's revenue per order that we're looking at here. So I'll just enter it at the top right here and cell F1, revenue per order. And to fix the alignment here, I'll press Alt-OCA. That fixes that. Now for the formulas, you always start out a formula in Excel if it's something that you're entering yourself with the equals symbol. So you press equals, and we simply move to the left with the arrow key, left arrow key. We press the asterisk, Shift 8 on your keyboard, and then we move left again with the left arrow key over to product price. And that gives us product revenue per order. Now, the formatting on this is not quite correct, so we're going to go over to product price over here and press Control C to copy this, move up here, and press Alt EST to copy the format. Now we have this. Okay, so we have that. And in Excel, basically whenever you enter a formula, you always start it with the equal symbol. The only exception to this is that if you're entering a built-in formula in Excel, which I'll go through in a later video in this series, you don't necessarily always start with the equal symbol. You can if you want to. So for example, if you want to enter a sum formula, you could enter equals and then sum, and that will give you the formula, and that's if you remember the name of it. But another way you could enter the formulas is you could press Shift F3, and that gives you, you see right over here, select a function. So this gives you some built-in functions in Excel, like sum, average, if, count, max, and most of these standard deviations should be common sense to you. But this brings up the menu for inserting built-in Excel functions. The other way you could access this one is Alt-MF. And this will also give you these built-in Excel functions. So those are the 2 or 3 basic ways you can actually enter formulas in Excel. You can either do it yourself with the equal symbol, and then just enter the formula name if it's built in, or multiply the numbers if you want to do it that way. Or you could press Shift F3 to go to built-in formulas, or Alt-MF to go to built-in formulas. So for now, let's go back to what we originally had here, and we're going to multiply the product price by the product quantity. So we have product quantity times product price. Okay, now what we want to do next is fill this down. So we basically want to take the formula that we just entered and fill this entire region all the way down to the bottom here. I'm pressing the Shift and the down arrow key to highlight everything there with that formula for product revenue per order. Now, one way we could do this is that we could press Control C, hold down Shift, and then press Alt ES F to copy the formula down. So that would be one way we could do it. We could also press R here to copy formulas and number formats, and that would probably be the more useful shortcut in this situation. And you already know how to do that because we've already gone over paste special and the Alt ES command to get to paste special. So that's one way we could do this here. And we can see the results right there of 200,000 all the way down to 1,750,000 at the bottom. And so another way that we can copy this formula down is we can use Control D. So to use this, we simply start out with the cell with the formula that we want right here, press Shift and the down arrow key to get to the bottom, then press Control D to copy this formula all the way down. And in terms of which method you want to be using here, it really depends on what you have and your formatting and everything like that. To be honest, you could really use either one. Copying the formula and number formats takes a few more keystrokes, but the advantage is that you maintain the formatting perfectly like that. You see here the problem that since we've copied the formatting from this cell right here, what's happened is that this one doesn't have a border at the bottom, and now as a result, this one also doesn't have a border at the bottom either. So it's up to you. The two basic ways you want to be copying formulas around, though, are either with Control D when it's a column like this, or Control R if it were horizontal. We'll get into that in the next file we're going to look at here. Or you can press Control C and then Alt ES to go to paste special, and either copy formulas or formulas and number formats with R here. So Alt ESF for formulas, and then Alt ESR for formulas and number formats. Okay, so those are the basics of formulas when you're working with data sets like this. Now I'm going to move over to our basic LBO model, and I'm going to be showing you a few more formatting features and functionalities over there. So let me just undo everything I've just done here now. Go back to our original state in this file. Okay, so here we are in the LBO model. And there are a couple other important features of formulas in Excel and associated shortcuts that I want to show you in this one. So this is a model now, so this is much more complicated than the simple data set that we were looking at previously. But what I want to draw your attention to is in this operating income, this EBIT line right here. You see that it's E20 times J5, and that J5 has dollar signs around that. So to get those dollar signs basically mean that this J5 value is anchored. And what that means is that when you copy this formula across, this J5, so this particular operating margin percentage that we've chosen up here of 30%, it's not going to change at all. So you're always going to be referencing the cell no matter where you copy it in the file. And to illustrate the difference, let me just show you what happens if we don't anchor it. So let's say we're multiplying revenue here by operating margin up here, 30%. And we can copy this across now with Control R, and again, we don't really have too much formatting here, so Control R is fine to use. It's a really handy shortcut for copying formulas across like this. Okay, and now we see what the problem is. We're now referencing K5 here, L5 here, M5, N5, O5, and so on. So this J5 is not staying in place, and that's a big problem in our Excel file, in our financial model here. So let's fix that now. And the way we do anchoring is we press F4. So we press Control Shift and then the arrow key, the left arrow key here to highlight this J5, and then we press F4 to anchor it. And what this will let us do now, we'll do before and after, and I'll show you what happens when we copy this across now. So let's press Shift Control right arrow key to highlight this whole area, and then Control R to copy it across. And you see that it's much better. This J5 now stays constant going all the way across. F4 is probably one of the most commonly used shortcuts in Excel when you're in investment banking and private equity. So it's really, really important that you remember this one. Now, you don't always have to anchor the entire cell. You can also anchor just the vertical component or just the horizontal component of whatever cell you're targeting with this. So for example, if we press Shift Control to highlight this J5 and we press F4, now we see that the 5 part is anchored. So what this means is that the J will actually change now. So in other words, the column for the cell is going to be changing, but the 5 part, the row part, is going to be staying the same. So let's copy this across now to see what happens. And once again, we see that this is useless to us in this model because we have K5, L5, M5, N5, O5. And that's all fine and dandy, but ultimately we want to be keeping the same exact cell in this particular case. However, if we were to copy this down, for example, so let's say we have this row of cells, copy this down, we see that the 5 component now has stayed the same because the row is now anchored. Now it's not particularly useful here because we want to be referencing the same exact cell, but there are some cases in formulas and different models where this may actually be useful. Okay, and then now let's try the other variation. So we'll highlight this whole J5 again with Shift Control, and then we'll press F4 one more time, and this time the J will be held constant. Copy this across, Shift Control right, and then Control R to copy this across. And now we see that this is much better. Of course, we don't really want to be doing this because now the danger is that if we copy this to the next line, well, now this is going to be referencing the next row. So there are cases where we use just anchoring the row or column, but I would say most of the time in Excel you want to be anchoring the whole cell, and you do that by pressing F4. So F4 to anchor the whole cell, then to change it to just the row, then to change it to just the column. Very important, very useful shortcut when you're working with formulas in Excel. Now, another useful feature that we could add in to our LBO model here is that we have all our set of assumptions at the top right here. Transaction assumptions, operating assumptions, sources and uses, everything like that. And if we go all the way to the bottom here, we see we have the IRR calculation right here. So that's fine, but what might be useful for us is if we could actually include the IRR calculation at the very top of the file right here, right next to the sources and uses and under operating assumptions. So let's just make a category for that right now called IRR. Now, one way you could do this is you could just press equals, and you could go all the way to the bottom like I'm doing right now, and we could just link in IRR like that. We usually want to be pressing F4 when we do this to make sure it doesn't shift around at all. But I would suggest here that the better way to be doing this in this particular case, whenever you have formulas that you want to show in multiple locations or anything like that, rather than entering it and then linking it, the easier way to do it is to go all the way down to the bottom, press Control C, and then go up to the top, go over to the IRR calculation and press Alt ESL. And that copies a link. So if you go to Alt ES, you see right here, paste link, and that's what it does. So Alt ESL to paste the link. This is very, very useful, and this is actually a shortcut that a lot of people don't even know about, but it's very useful when you get to a particular formula or some type of input that you want to use across your model or your different spreadsheets, and you don't want to have to just enter it and then go back and try to find it. You want to find it once and then copy and paste it wherever you want. So this is very, very useful, Alt ESL, and I recommend that you use it as much as possible because it's going to save you a lot of time when you're going through and building models. Now, another few things that are useful in terms of basic formulas and giving you an overview of formulas in Excel are jumping to formulas and then jumping to constants in your spreadsheets, because any formula is going to be made up of variables and constants. You want to be able to jump to the constants easily. You want to be able to jump to the formulas easily. And this is something we touched on briefly in some of the previous videos, but I'm going to give it to you here again because it's very useful when we have formulas like this. So to jump to constants, we press F5, then we go to Alt S for special, then we go to formulas, and then we unhighlight the text right here. And we can see, just looking at this and scrolling down, this is very useful. Not particularly great in this particular model because so much of what we have is formulas. But if we were to have a case where we had a lot more inputs or a lot more constants, then it would just be useful to sort of see what's a formula and what's not. So once again, that is F5 and then Alt S to go to special, F for formulas, and then X to unhighlight text. And this will just give us numbers, logicals, and errors. Logicals are formulas, errors are any error messages that you get from your formulas. Now, if we want to highlight constants, we'd press F5, Alt S, and then O to go to constants. And then, of course, we see that we have all the constants here under operating assumptions, transaction assumptions, and of course, we see we have all the text highlighted here as well because that's what we selected above. So both these are very useful when you're trying to troubleshoot and debug, if you will, some of your formulas and models in Excel. The last thing I want to show you really quickly in terms of just looking at formulas and constants and getting a handle on what's going on in your spreadsheets in Excel is another useful feature which allows you to actually look at all the different formulas that are included in your current spreadsheet. The way you do that is Control tilde equal sign. So Control tilde equal sign. And you see what effect this has had. Now we see all the different constants. We see the different formulas actually laid out here. And the reason this is useful when you're looking at formulas in Excel is because in many cases your formula might be off by one, or maybe you hit the wrong cell or something like that. And if you were to try to go through everything yourself without actually being able to see all the formulas at once, it would take quite a while to find your mistake. Whereas if you have it like this, it makes it much easier to kind of look at things quickly and say, okay, well, clearly this is wrong because of this, or oh, this cell is off by one because of this. So this is a very useful feature, particularly when you're working with more complex models. Not terribly useful with simpler things, but when you're working with more complex models across multiple worksheets or spreadsheets or whatnot, then this really comes in handy. So we'll just press Control tilde equal sign again to get rid of that. And that's a basic overview of the different formulas within Excel, how to enter formulas, and some of the more useful keyboard shortcuts. And once again, many of the formulas that you enter will be quite simple, like right here, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I'm going to kind of assume that you know that sort of stuff. So what I want you to do now is go through a few simple exercises to get some practice using these different formulas. And to start with, we're going to move back to the original customer data worksheet, and then I'm going to move into this LBO worksheet, make some additions, and have you fix a few things that are on here. So let me just first delete this IRR calculation right here. Okay, so here we are back on our formula overview sheet. And so here's what I want you to do. Here's your exercise with formulas. This one's pretty simple, but it's important because you want to get a really good sense of just how to enter formulas and gain some familiarity with the basic shortcuts. So what I want you to do is look at these two columns, product price and product quantity, and then enter a third column right here, which is product revenue per order. So I'm going to do it for you right now, and then you're going to pause the video, try it yourself, and see if you can do everything correctly. So let me just enter a new column right here. Call this revenue per order. So I'll just enter product revenue per order here, and I'm just going to fix the formatting quickly. Change it to currency. I'm going to copy this formula all the way down to the bottom. Okay. Then one last thing is I can just fix the bottom border right here. Okay, so now I want you to pause the video, look at the Excel file, the before file that's included along with this video, pause it, and then try to replicate what I did on screen. Once you've done that, or if you get stuck, then unpause the video, and then this time I'm going to walk you through it by giving you all the shortcuts this time. Okay, good. So first let me just undo everything I did here, and I'm going to walk you through it this time and give you all the shortcuts. So first things first, to select a column, we press Control Spacebar and then Alt-IC to insert a new column. I'm just going to enter revenue per order right here. Enter the formula, I press equals, product quantity, multiply that by product price. Now to fix the formatting, this is a review from some of the formatting videos we did. Control 1, N to get to number, Alt-C to get to category, then C again for currency. Set the decimal places to 0. Symbol is fine as $. We'll press Enter for OK. Now to copy this down, we press Shift and the down arrow key, then Control D to copy it down. Now to fix the border at the bottom, I press Control down arrow key, then Control 1, B to get to border, and then Alt B for lower border. And then the last thing we have to do here is press Alt OCA to fix the alignment and to make sure this extends all the way across. So that's how we fix this formula and get to the product revenue per order for each of these customers. So that was the first exercise. Now I'm going to go over to the basic LBO model and give you a different exercise right there. And if you open your Excel file that's included with this video right now, you'll see that it looks something like the one that I have right here, where the operating income, the EBIT, is blank, and where we don't have the IRR calculation listed at the top. So what I want you to do is to actually fill these out and enter the operating income numbers right here based on our assumptions here at the top for operating margin, revenue growth, and everything up there. And then I also want you to enter the IRR calculation right here. So I'm going to do it first, and then I'll pause the video and then walk you through it by giving you the shortcuts. So for operating income, I'm going to take the revenue, then multiply by operating margin, anchoring it, and copy the formula across. Then for the IRR calculation, I'm going to go all the way to the bottom, copy this, go up to the top, and then paste the link right there. And I can enter IRR. Okay, so that's how I did it very quickly with the use of Excel shortcuts relating to formulas. So I want you to pause the video right now, try it yourself, and if you get stuck, just unpause it, or if you want to check yourself, unpause it, and then this time I'm going to walk you through it by using the keyboard shortcuts and giving you everything along the way. Okay, good. So here I'm going to undo everything that I just entered to get back to the original state. Okay. So here's what we do to enter this. So we start out by pressing equals for operating income. We select revenue, and we press the Shift 8 key for the asterisk, the multiplication symbol. Go up to the top with Control arrow key. Then operating margin, we select that, and we press F4 to anchor this. F4 to anchor this. And we copy it across by pressing the Shift right arrow key and then Control R to copy that all the way across. So Control R to copy it across and then F4 to anchor the J5, the operating margin in the first place. Now for the IRR calculation, we go to the bottom with the Control down arrow key, Control C to copy the IRR calculation, move up to the top with Control up arrow key. Then we press Alt ES. We see the paste link right here. So Alt ESL to paste this formula link. Okay. Then we can just go over here and enter IRR. Okay, so those are some of the basic formula shortcuts that you need to know when working with data sets and then working with financial models and actual formulas and calculations. In the next video, I'm going to be going through some of the basic built-in formulas and functionalities within Excel. So some of the functions that are very basic that you use all the time that you won't have to enter or replicate by yourself. Excel makes this quite easy. I'm going to be going through the most common ones that you actually use in investment banking and private equity and giving you an overview and then giving you some practice exercises so that you can learn those by yourself as well.